Yes, nice to meet you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Myung-hwan, and I am a comedian, a film actor, a TV personality, a restaurant CEO, a best-selling author, and a lecturer. It's great to meet you all. Today, the topic I want to share with you is, can you really make money through reading? And can you live a happy life through reading? Let me talk a bit about the answer to that question. There is a word called Zorba the Greek. It's a famous novel by the Greek author Nikos Kazantzakis. And in that book, it says, the only way to save myself is to try to save others. Living for other people, it's not about being some kind of a saint. It's not asking you to do that. It's about striving to save others in order to truly live as your authentic self. Think about money for a moment. It's not that I earn money by myself. It's that others give me money. For that to happen, especially for us living in this AI era, my sincerity has to come across so that others will want to give me money, right? You wouldn't want to give your money to someone who's selfishly focused on their own happiness, their own things, their own money, and their own greed, like a sly fox. To earn other people's money fairly, and even to make others willingly want to give you their money, you need to have a heart that cares for others. But it's not easy to genuinely care for others, is it? But that's okay. We just need to understand. Humans are actually born with this kind of heart. Mencius called this Yuja Ipjang. It means a child falling into a well. So think about it. When a little child is toddling around near a well and suddenly trips on something and is about to fall in, at that moment, even the most wicked person would instinctively reach out to save the child. Right? I'm sure you understand this. And this is something that exists in our hearts, and if we make use of it, we can bring out our creativity. What I mean is, even if you haven't played Go, you've probably heard this kind of thing, right? People often say that you come up with better moves when giving advice than when actually playing yourself. That's exactly this principle. What I mean is, when we give advice in Go, we never root for the person who's winning. Advice is always given to support the person who's losing. That's because we have a desire to help the one who's behind. So you think, if that friend just makes this move, they'll capture all of the opponent's big group and win. Then even you yourself are surprised. You're only about a rank 10 player, and you come up with such a brilliant move at the level of 2 or 3. But when it comes to your own playing, when you're the one participating, your own greed, your own money, your own desire to win, these things make you nervous. So it actually gets in the way of these creative ideas coming to me. In other words, you could say that I use the people around me to draw out things that wouldn't normally come from within myself. To share something from my own experience, a few weeks ago, my hometown is Sangju in North Gyeongsang Province. And the Sangju Livestock Cooperative invited me to be a lecturer. This is something I believe that only people from Sangju would know. Right now, the future of Sangju depends on the Sangju beef. Of course, since I'm biased toward my hometown, I can't quite say that Sangju Korean beef is better than Hwangsong Korean beef, but honestly, it's almost on par. Sangju unintentionally has become a pristine area, making it an ideal place for raising Korean cattle. So as I was heading down, I thought, let me try to create a brand that can really promote Sangju Korean beef to a wider audience. Well, to create a brand, the first thing you need to do is come up with a name. But you see, I've done that kind of thing a lot before. So I was thinking about what name would best promote Sangju Korean beef while I was driving. And within about 12 seconds, my creativity kicked in and I came up with a name. Let me share it with you all. The brand name for Sangju Korean beef is The Rewards of Sangju, because it's delicious. The Rewards of Sangju, because they're raised well. The Rewards of Sangju, because the marbling is excellent. There were about 120 staff there at the lecture. They gave me a standing ovation when I presented this name. So here's the thing. If I had thought Sangju beef, right, since my hometown has Sangju beef, I'll sell this and make money for myself, I would never have come up with this kind of idea. I've been a comedian for over 25 years, and our whole job is about coming up with ideas. So we're kind of strange in that way. Even in our comedians' room, we have these idea meetings. There's Hwang Ji-sung's team, Lee Guk-ju's team, and several others. So we all know what each team is working on. While we're coming up with our own ideas, we'll see that they're working on something with, say, black bean noodle. Then, instead of coming up with my own ideas, I can only think of theirs. It's really true. So I end up coming up with ideas for Hwang Ji-sung. He does it for Lee Guk-ju. And Lee Guk-ju comes up with ideas for me. And then all the comedians there are amazed. I used to wonder why I couldn't come up with my own ideas and only came up with good ideas for other people's segments. But it turns out this is the reason. Think about how I would have felt after coming up with the name The Rewards of Sangju and then heading to Sangju. Even I thought, The Rewards of Sangju, wow, that's really good. So, it's like this. You got a perfect score on a test at least once during elementary, right? And as soon as you walked out the school gate, you held it up, right? Mom, I got a 100. That's how you should live each day. Of course, there are happy days to come in the future, but we also live in the present, right? We need to be happy today. So as I was coming up, I felt so good that I thought, while I'm at it, why not make a song for the name too? So on the way up, I actually wrote the lyrics in just 2 minutes at the Myung-hwan rest stop. I've experienced so many times that when you genuinely care for others, that's when your creativity really shines. But now when you hear stories like this, you might think, okay, I get it. I get it, but I just can't do it. So to give you the answer to that, I say that your heart has to be turned upside down. The book that turned my heart upside down was Dostoevsky's Notes from Underground. While reading it, I wondered, isn't there something more precious for almost everyone than their own best interest? The best interest mentioned here refers to what everyone else says is right, the way others say you should live. Hey, if you live like that, you'll lose out. Doing it this way is great for you, but isn't there something even more precious than that so-called best interest? After asking this question, if you move on to the next part, it goes like this. Anyway, even if it might sound a bit off topic, what can you do about your own whims? Even if it ends up being a disadvantage to yourself or goes against your own interests. What if it's something you want to do? This kind of a free personal drive, that is what the book talks about. Underneath that, I wrote in red letters, An Jong-gun. So everyone just think about it for a moment. When An Jong-gun decided, I'm going to Harbin to assassinate Ito Hirobumi, imagine how much his family and the people around him must have tried to stop him. Why do you have to go? You know the consequences? What about your family? You're young and have a whole future ahead of you. There must be something even greater. But no matter how much people try to stop you, no matter how much others say it's a loss, what can you do if it's what you truly want to do? This is what you can call a calling. Yes, a calling. What's the greatest loss? Throwing away your own life is your greatest loss, isn't it? And yet, An Jong-gun believed that his own free will and drive, what made his life complete, were worth it. People tend to say you have to live a long life. You should live like this. But what others say isn't what's important. As I read those lines, my heart was turned upside down. There's a poem I always read to my audience. It's by poet Ban Chi-hwan called On the First Day of the New Year. In the poem, the stork flies, the horse runs, the turtle walks, the snail crawls, and the grub rolls along. But on the first day of the new year, they all arrive at the same time and place. So everybody has their own pace, right? If the stork flies 30 kilometers in a day and the snail tries to fly 30 kilometers too, that's when we start to overreach and try to make money quickly. So, if I were to explain to you in concrete terms how reading books can actually help you make money, let me tell you about a philosopher named Wittgenstein. Time magazine selected the 100 most influential people of the 20th century, and he was the only one chosen purely as a philosopher. But what this person said was, the limits of my language mean the limits of my world. So you are all making money right now, right? You're earning as much money as the number of words you know. You all agree that Mr. Baek Jong-won is making good money in the restaurant business and will probably continue to do well, right? But take a closer look. If you watch Mr. Baek Jong-won on Ali Restaurant, when he goes to a Chinese restaurant, he knows the names of all those strange Chinese mushrooms and all sorts of odd pungent ingredients, right? And he knows the names of all the cooking equipment and utensils too. How about at an Italian restaurant? He knows all the cooking techniques at an Italian restaurant and all those terms for making sauces where chemical reactions happen, right? When it comes to the food service industry, he knows the most terminology, at least in Korea. That's why he's the most successful at making money in the restaurant business. So, what do you need to do to get rich? You need to know the language of the rich. It's simple. What I mean is, if you want to make money in a certain field, you need to know the language of that field. You need to learn the terms, but there is a key point that you need to pay attention to. Say, you want to become a building owner, or you want to succeed in the restaurant business. You usually study the positive side. In your imagination, if you become a building owner, you get 50 million won in rent every month without having to work. The land value keeps going up. And if you run a 5 billion won restaurant, you design all the menus, make the interior stylish, create hip uniforms, and people line up waiting for tables, right? And for promotion, you spread it all over Instagram, YouTube, and places like that. But that's only half the story. We say things will turn out the way we imagine, but we always only talk about half of it. My new book is called How Do I Find the Answer to Life? And when people ask me to sign it, I write the answer is in suffering. What I mean is, if you want to make money in that field, you have to study the suffering first. To own a building, you need to know what to do when the drain gets clogged and you have to fix it yourself, what kinds of problems arise during renovations, how disputes with tenants happen during eviction lawsuits, and how to pay taxes. The same goes for the restaurant business. So because we don't try to learn the language of hardship and only keep studying the language of the positive side, that's why we're not achieving our goals. Then, what kind of fields language would I recommend you study right now? You should definitely search for keywords like Web 3.0 or the Fourth Industrial Revolution. They're recommended books on those topics. Just read a few of those books, no matter what, because now is the era of AI. And with the Fourth Industrial Revolution, our country will become a major beneficiary. When you think of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, things like NFT, metaverse, AI, ChatGPT, quantum computers, big data, and the Internet of Things come to mind, right? You need to know the language related to these things. You need to know the language so that when you hear those terms somewhere, you can recognize and pick up on them. In other words, you have to know the language to be able to seize opportunities. Finally, since we've been talking about reading, let's discuss how to read efficiently. I have a personal library that I call my own arsenal. I own over 3,000 books, and I've divided them into 3 categories. The first category includes humanities, classics, and philosophy. Books that I've read once but believe are worth reading for a lifetime. Books like Zoba the Greek, History of the Peloponnesian War, Records of the Grand Historian, and The Art of War that I mentioned earlier. All of these are in this section. The second category is books that are solely about making money. So starting with books by Seth Godin, as well as works by Rangju Lee, titles like The Secret of Things That Survived, and so on. So when I'm working on things like marketing, publicity, or brainstorming ideas, I stand right here. If life gets tough, I go to the first section. And then third is where I keep the books I'm currently reading. My arsenal is organized like that. So don't ask other people for advice, everyone. Even if you have only 10 books there, it's fine as long as they help you during hard times. Even if you only have 4 books or 3 books or even 1, that's perfectly fine. Try setting this up today. So instead of asking other people, if you have a question or concern in a certain area, say, if it's about life, first section. Want to make money? Second section. If you want to improve yourself, the third section. In this way, as you add more and more books one by one, you can consider it as your wealth increasing as well. That's exactly how I think. So for people who read these books, after my wife and I got married, I once asked her, honey, why did you decide to marry me? She said, because you always come and talk about something new. So people who read books, the reason we talk about boomer attitudes is that those kinds of people never talk about the present. They only talk about the old days. That's why we don't like it. We are beings who live in the present. We need to talk about the present. When I read some classics, I would tell my wife about how classic literature gives answers to life. And then, these days, I'm working on a new recipe for a japchae that I'm looking forward to sell overseas. So I always share plenty of stories about the present with my wife. And my wife said that made her feel very reassured. When you take a close look at people who talk about the present, people who talk about the present have no need to worry about the future. Those who have a lot to say about the present are bound to do well in the future. So the people we call old-fashioned or boomer types don't talk about the present. And not only do they not do well, but listening to them is just boring, right? But when you listen to someone who talks about the present, their stories always feel fresh because it is the present. I also don't think much of people who only talk about the distant future, like saying, I will one day own a building. Instead of talking about some far-off future, you should be able to talk more about the near future or the present. So if you all live by this standard, whether it's about money or your life or whatever it may be through reading, I believe you'll be able to catch both the rabbits. Please give reading a chance, and I'm sure you'll receive all the wonderful, inspiring energy of books and reading. Thank you.